afternoon to you, Sudan. Good afternoon to you, Algeria, Guinea, Nigeria. Good afternoon to you, Kenya, Tanzania. Good afternoon to you, Botswana. Good afternoon, Africa. Welcome to Africa in Business on Channel Africa. I'm Tami Ngubeni. This is where you get the African perspective. It's where we meet to look at the latest in news, sport and business. Standing by with your latest local, continental and international news. At 4 p.m, here is Onele Nzinzi.
SABC News. The African Perspective.
Thank you, Tommy. Looking at your top story, South Africa urges full compliance with the recently gazetted regulations of the Judicial Commission of Inquiry, and Zimbabwe visa processing in the U.S. stopped until further notice. Your latest news. Greetings to our listeners. South Africa's Justice Minister, Mamoloko Kubai, has urged full compliance with the recently gazetted regulations of the Judicial Commission of Inquiry into efforts to block the investigation and prosecution of Truth and Reconciliation Commission cases. Speaking at the Women's Month Dialogue at the University of South Africa in Pretoria, Kubai emphasized the importance of reading and understanding the regulations. She says the regulations empower the Commission's chairperson, adding that compliance is not optional.
The gazettes are out in terms of, and I want to emphasize to South Africans, please read the regulations, because we don't want tomorrow you tell us that, no, this is not within. The regulations empowers the chairperson in a number of areas. So I want to urge compliance with the commission is in terms of the act now. It's not if I want to. Anyone who's subpoenaed by the commission has to appear before the commission.
Furthermore, UN Women's Deputy Representative Dr. Hazel Gooding says women's health, including mental well-being, is not a luxury but a necessity. She was also speaking at the Women's Month Dialogue underway in South Africa's capital, Pretoria. Highlighting it as one of the 12 critical areas of the Beijing Declaration, Gooding stressed that proper nutrition, sexual and reproductive rights, freedom from violence and mental health are essential for women to realize their full potential.
Women's health is one of the 12 critical areas of the Beijing Declaration because women need to be healthy to realize our full potential. This includes proper nutrition, sexual and reproductive rights, freedom from violence, and mental health. Women's mental health and well-being are not luxuries. They are the foundation of activism, leadership, and care work.
Some political parties attending the 2025 National House of Traditional and Khoi Leaders Imbizo in South Africa are unanimous on the recognition of the Khoi and San people. The Khoi and San people are actively seeking greater recognition and rights, particularly regarding land and cultural preservation. The African National Congress NEC member David Mahlobo says the country can no longer afford to have the Khoi and San being treated as ARCOS. Mahlobo was speaking at the 3-day gathering underway in Boksburg, east of Johannesburg.
One of the biggest issues that we need to address, without any fear or favor or prejudice, is the question of the recognition of the Khoi and San community. We owe it to ourselves. Even before Jan van Riebeeck and others arrived in 1652, the Khoi and the San, they held the fort. They are struggling against colonialism, later in apartheid. They too, under the sun, cannot be treated as a skunk. They cannot be treated as a pariah amongst the nation of South Africa. Therefore, the issues of moving with speed around the issues of legislation is an important matter.
Officials in Nigeria say the death toll in the attack by a gunman on a mosque and nearby homes in Katsina State has now risen to at least 50, with around 60 others abducted. The attack occurred yesterday in the remote community of Unguwan Mantawu as Muslim worshippers gathered for the dawn prayer. Witnesses say armed assailants arrived in motorcycles, opening fire inside the mosque before moving through the village. Several homes were also set ablaze before security forces arrived at the scene. And lastly, the United States has stopped processing most visas in Zimbabwe until further notice, citing unspecified concerns with the government. According to a notice on the U.S. State Department's website, the pause took effect on the 7th of August. U.S. President Donald Trump's administration has restricted travel from a number of African countries, saying it is working to prevent visa overstaying and misuse. Zimbabwe had a visa overstay rate of 10.57% in 2023. Recapping on your top story, South Africa's Justice Minister Mamoloko Kubai has urged full compliance with the recently gazetted regulations for the Judicial Commission of Inquiry into efforts to block the investigation and prosecution of Truth and Reconciliation Commission cases. Channel Africa News, I'm Oneli Tsinzi.
SABC News. The African Perspective.
And coming up in your sports news this hour, more than 80% of tickets sold out for the Women's Rugby World Cup, while India bans online gambling, citing concern over financial harm. Details of these and other stories coming up at the bottom of the hour.
Connecting Africa to the world. Africa in Business with Tami Ngubeni brings you the latest insights on Africa's economy.
It is exactly 6 minutes after 4 p.m. Central African time. On the agenda this afternoon on Africa in Business, we focus on the fuel situation in Malawi. You will remember that in November of 2024, the Malawian government imposed fuel rationing. That continues to this day as far as scarcity of petrol is concerned. We'll be finding out from our correspondent in Malawi what the situation on the ground is. Also hearing from the Transporters Association of Malawi on how this has affected business on their side. Also coming up this afternoon on Africa in Business, we'll be focusing on Murray Roberts as well as the situation that they're finding themselves in. The engineering and mining contractor is facing potential liquidation. We'll be speaking to the president of the Association of the Mine Workers and Construction Union, Joseph Matunjwa. We do know that Murray Roberts is a huge company that has employed hundreds over the years. How does this potential liquidation bode for the workers? That and a whole lot more coming up on Africa in Business this afternoon. You are invited to interact with us on the various social media platforms. You may be in Malawi, you may be a worker at Murray & Roberts, and these are the stories that affect you directly. We'd love to hear from you. What is your experience on the ground? How have these changes affected your business? You can comment on these and other business-related stories on social media. You'll find us on X at Channel Africa 1, as well as on Instagram and YouTube. On Facebook, we are at Channel Africa.
African enterprise meets global opportunity. Africa in Business on Channel Africa.
The Malawi Energy Regulatory Authority, MIRA, has directed that most filling stations should operate between 6 a.m. and 6 p.m. to address fuel shortages and illegal sales to neighboring countries. Most of the affected fuel stations have been listed and are along Malawi's borders with Mozambique, as well as Zimbabwe, or rather Mozambique, Zambia, as well as Tanzania. This is the government awaiting a delivery of fuel under the government-to-government agreement or arrangement. For more on this, we joined on the line by our correspondent in Malawi, George Mhango. A very good afternoon to you, George. Good to have you with us.
A very good afternoon to you too. Thank you.
Could you explain to us what the situation is on the ground? I was saying earlier on in our introduction that it was in November of 2024 that the government imposed fuel rationing, but clearly the situation around the availability of petrol has not changed. What are the dynamics in Malawi as we speak?
What's known currently is the fact that a number of institutions, more especially government, private, are also affected. Why? Because it's like fuel is in short supply. Government expected to have fuel that is based on government to government a couple of weeks ago, but that seems to be a challenge, and that is why there is this kind of a fuel shortage And that is why there is this fuel shortage in Malawi. And of course, the Malawi Energy Regulatory Authority has indeed intensified its efforts to say that all those institutions that do not indeed, sell within the required 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. will be, punished. And these filling stations are close to the borders with Malawi. That's Tanzania, Zambia, Zimbabwe. I mean, that's Zambia, Mozambique, and other countries because of some illegal sales which are happening currently. And these initiatives are supposed to ensure that not many people, do have fuel. And of course, we've been speaking to some motorists who are complaining that maybe in terms of some international trade, they will have some challenges. What if they run out of fuel? That is where the problem mainly is. And for those cross-border traders, that's also a challenge. So they have, not agreed with this news, but they're saying government has to open up.
And where are
Yes.
these challenges of fuel shortages being experienced? Is it mainly in the capital, Lilongwe, or is it more widespread?
It's across the board in the commercial capital Blantyre. We're talking about Lilongwe, we're talking about Mzuzu, and any other township. That's where the challenge is. All institutions, be it various bus operators, are facing the pinch. So every Jim and Betty is feeling this pinch, such that even this political campaign period is facing some hitches because not all political party leaders are able to travel from one point to the other just because of fuel shortages. So anybody else is feeling the pinch, and that has also led to the rise of prices in different commodities. For instance, sugar is now fetching maybe above the required amount, just like the price of maize. So it's a challenge to each and every person.
And when is the delivery of petrol and diesel from the OQT company of Oman and Abu Dhabi National Oil Company expected to arrive in Malawi?
The understanding of government was that the government-to-government fuel supply is going to be in, that is 2 weeks ago. That's from Oman, Qatar, that's United Arab Emirates, but until today, it's nowhere to be seen. And the anticipation of government is that some other institutions of filling station are hoarding this fuel in their pump stations. And that is why they've decided to make this kind of a measure to say from 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. these filling stations should be operational. So we are yet to see whether this is going to be viable, because at the rate at which things are going to happen, maybe come next week, we should also expect long queues being seen in different towns.
So Malawi is expecting around 50 million litres of fuel under the G2G arrangement. Could you maybe explain for us, and maybe if we could just take this back a little bit, as to what it is that led us to this situation in the first place, why it is that the fuel rationing was actually put in place about a year ago?
Basically, it was put in place for one reason, to ensure that those people or those institutions that are into essential supplies do have this fuel, more especially those people that will transport maybe, say, sugar, fertilizer for the input subsidy program. These people were being targeted.
All right. Thank you very much for that update, George Mhango. That's George Mhango reporting to us live from Malawi, giving us an idea of what the situation on the ground is like, as you heard him saying that there has been an increase in the prices of, commodities such as sugar, for example. So let's change gears a bit and hear the perspective of the Transporters Association of Malawi. We're joined this afternoon by the spokesperson of TAM, Frank Banda. A very good afternoon to you, Mr. Banda. Thank you for joining us on Africa in Business.
Good afternoon. Thank you for inviting us to join you on this program.
So, Mr. Banda, you have been quoted as saying that the situation on petrol has been worsened rather by delays to get clearance in Tanzania. Could you tell us more about this? What is it that's exacerbating this situation, and what are the logistical challenges that you are citing?
Yeah, of course, we had this, at starters, we have been experiencing problems in Forex. We have shortage of Forex in the country, which is making it difficult for all importing companies to pay, to remit the funds to their fuel suppliers. And also, we also had a problem with the clearance of TRA. They were slow after our trucks have loaded fuel in the port of Dar es Salaam. They were too slow in processing the paperwork for the goods in transit coming to Malawi. But the government intervened, Malawi government and also government of Tanzania, they intervened to expedite the process of clearance. I can probably say that now things have improved. Once our trucks are loaded in Dar es Salaam, they don't take more than a day for them to give us a clearance for the goods, for documents for the trucks to bring the fuel to Malawi, since the cargo is in transit coming to Malawi. So for now, I can say that the process has improved in Tanzania. The only issue that we had was that when the fuel were coming in from government has changed its way of importing fuel in Malawi, they came up with this process of G2G process, and they ordered a ship which came to Tanga, but they took time to discharge the fuel because of I think there was a queue on the port that led to the delays. But for now, I can say that we loaded 400 trucks, both petrol and diesel, in Tanga, and most of those trucks are in Malawi. We are finishing loading in Tanga today. You can see that the fuel queues in Malawi for now they have improved. They're just looking forward that the government should make sure that they should help NOCMA and PIL with the forex, so that they should be able to order fuel from the suppliers in good time, so that there shouldn't be any disruption in the supply in the country.
So the 400 trucks, around how many liters of fuel is that?
About 400 trucks. It's almost about 15 to 19 million liters of both petrol and diesel.
And how long is that anticipated to last for? I mean, we do understand that there's a shipment of around 50 million liters of fuel that is supposed to come in, from through Tanga. Some of it, 28 million liters from Tanga, and then 22 million liters as well. How long is this 15 to 19 million liters expected to last for Malawi?
I can tell you that for Malawi, our monthly consumption is at almost close to 50 million liters in a month. That's our monthly consumption of fuel. But I should also remind you that this is the G2G fuel which the government is bringing into the country. But there's still also there are normal suppliers for NOCMA and PAO. They're still supplying. They still have the government also increase their volumes to supply to NOCMA. So it's like this G2G is just supplementing the normal suppliers of NOCMA and the PIL. So I should say that the fuel which government has procured through G2G, I think it can last. It can last for a month, but you should also be reminded that the normal suppliers for PIL and NOCMA has about its 4 suppliers, and also PIL they also have about 4 to 5 suppliers that are still supplying. But the biggest challenge that maybe these companies are facing is the problem of forex. And that's why I say that we are just saying that the government should continue intervening through the central bank, helping PIO and NOCMA to facilitate them to have forex, so that they should remit the money to their fuel supplier, so that there shouldn't be any disruption in the fuel supply in the country.
Mr. Frank Banda, we thank you very much for your update this afternoon. Mr. Banda is from the Transporters Association of Malawi. He's the spokesperson there on the 400 trucks that have now made it through, supplying 15 to 19 million litres of petrol. But as he says, the usage in the country per month is around 50 million. So they are not out of the woods as yet. But also very importantly, that this is a supplementary fuel from the government to government arrangement. It is not the exclusive and sole source of fuel for Malawi. That brings us to exactly 20 minutes after 4 p.m. Central African time. This is Africa in Business. Really keen to hear from you. Are you a business based in Malawi, or are you a resident of Malawi? How has this fuel shortage affected you? We'd like to find out from you. What is your daily experience? You'll find us on X, Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube. On Facebook, we are at Channel Africa. On X, Instagram, and YouTube, we are at Channel Africa 1.
AUSISA, the Association of Water and Sanitation Institution of South Africa, is a platform uniting Africa's water professionals. This November, Africa leads the conversation on water and sanitation. Join global and African leaders at the AUSISA Africa and Global South Dialogue 2025 from the 9th till the 12th of November at the Emperor's Palace, Johannesburg. From policy innovation, this is where action meets collaboration for a water-secure future. Register today at ausisa-watersan-dialogue.org or follow at AUSISA on social media. AUSISA, working together for sustainable water and sanitation security in Africa. We are on Open Views Audio Bouquet, Channel 628.
The KwaZulu-Natal Convention Bureau, in collaboration with Millvest Advisory and the city of Umhlathuze, bring you the 2025 Tourism Investment Forum Africa. By positioning these regions for sustainable growth, TIFA helps drive economic ambitions while providing access to critical capital, networks, and strategic insights on investment in trade in services sectors such as tourism. Join us for TIFA 2025 from August the 27th to the 29th at Tembela Venue in Richards Bay, KwaZulu-Natal, South Africa. Be part of the movement transforming tourism and infrastructure in Africa.
African enterprise meets global opportunity. Africa in Business on Channel Africa.
It is exactly 22 minutes after 4 p.m. Central African time as we turn our focus now to Murray and Roberts, the South African-based engineering and mining contractor. They're facing potential liquidation. This is after a creditor initiated legal proceedings in the Gauteng division of the High Court seeking a final or a provisional winding up order against the company. This is a move that Murray and Roberts says does not intend to oppose, and they're not going to be opposing this application, according to them. This as well comes after a period of intense financial distress for the company, which had been undergoing a business rescue process. For a reaction on the story, we joined on the line by the president of the Association of the Mine Workers and Construction Union, Joseph Matunjwa. A very good afternoon to you, Mr. Matunjwa. Good to have you with us on Africa in Business.
Good afternoon, and good afternoon to your listeners or viewers.
So some economists, Mr. Matunjwa, say that this comes as no surprise, as the company had experienced a rather significant liquidity constraints and the sale of its core assets. What are your thoughts on this? Are you in agreement?
Yes, it's a mix of many things that is happening in this country, whereby the economy is not growing, and also the promises of the government of a national development plan, where they projected that the economy will grow with certain percentage, of which that has never been realized. And we believe that is not only the liquidation that is will also suffer livelihoods. Many people will be losing jobs. And apart from that, or additional to that, the generational of knowledge in a complex engineering, mining, construction, and a large scale of civil projects are simply being erased. And this solely, if we have a responsive government that is centered and it puts South Africans or South Africa first before their egos whatsoever, they should have been taking these companies and put it under their wings as a state-owned enterprises and develop this country in their bulk project of infrastructure.
So we understand and know that Marion Roberts is a key player in the engineering and mining sector. How many workers will be affected should they be liquidated?
We'll say employed currently, it's about 5,300 workers, substantially decreased from its earlier peak of 10,000 in 2021. And by losing this job, 30% of it will be lost. So we expected to lose putting around 1,600 hardworking employees at immediate risk of retrenchment. That is where it is going. Then you can, as Africans, one employee support 5, then you time it's many people that we're gonna go to bed without food under this hard condition of unemployment in this country.
We hear Marion Roberts indicating that they don't have any intentions of challenging this liquidation process. And it brings a question to mind about the state of the construction sector in South Africa. How would you describe it? And what does Marion Roberts not challenging this liquidation say to you?
To me, if I can try to summarize it, that the liquidation, as they are not challenging, one can focus it maybe on the issue of the BE that is misdirected, of which many of these big companies, they've got, black economic empowerment. Some of them, they don't even add value. It's just for the tick box exercise for compliance, of which at the end of the day, if you've got a person who's just taking money, doesn't add a value, why should you keep that company running? So this is the government allowed tender cartels and pushing their friends to be a BE partners in these big companies without any additional of expertise.
You spoke about BEE there, Mr. Matunjwa, and you mentioned the structure that's been put in place. It's supposed to be an empowerment structure, where smaller companies in the construction sector get to work with the big five, so to speak, and the bigger construction companies. What then is the fate of those smaller players? I mean, if one of the big five construction companies like Murray and Robert fails to survive, what impact is that going to have on the larger industry and black business in particular?
Oh, it will suffer. Remember, this government for 30 years hasn't built any economy, for that matter. So therefore, the fate of those small businesses that were clinging under this big five construction will disappear. Because, hence I'm saying, if the government can take over this big company, like for instance, as ArcelorMittal, that government should have taken that company under themselves and make it one of the SOEs. So all those black economic serious persons that maybe they were serious about business, they will suffer, because if the big tree falls, surely even the branches will be under the same tree. So therefore, we don't see any future of black economic empowerment in South Africa.
You mentioned the possibility and a possible strategy that government here might have taken in taking the likes of ArcelorMittal, Marion Roberts, or any other, huge company that is under financial distress and converting them into a state-owned enterprise. But what logic or reward can that have as far as profitability is concerned? Because even the state-owned enterprises themselves are not thriving, and many of them would not survive if it were not for the bailouts that government keeps pumping into their coffers.
Incompetency. There is a future. It can work. It's just if you don't have competent people running these departments. And then you erase the issue of mismanagement, you erase the issue of corruption, and this thing called the comrade deployment, if there is any such thing. But if we've got competent people at the right space, this will be the savior for the people of South Africa, for the working class. But as long as we still got this incompetency, people running departments without any clear indication of any shred of a paper that suggests that he's competent in that space, we will also face it. The country actually has collapsed. This is a failed state. It's just the media does not want to pronounce it. It's a banana republic. It's a failed state. Yeah, I mean, we are living by grace here because of lack of competent leadership from the top to bottom. Look at it now. We are sitting at 0.8 growth. I mean, under the sitting president Ramaphosa, from Zuma was what, 1.7, 1.8. But it's still sitting there. We are clapping hands as if nothing happened. It's happening. Of above 40% of unemployment. And we are quiet.
Mr. Joseph Matunjwa, thank you very much for your insight. A very impassioned statement there towards the end. Mr. Joseph Matunjwa is the president of the Association of Mine Workers and Construction Union. We thank you for your time, sir.
Very much. God bless you all.
God bless you. Living by grace, he says, it's a failed state, a banana republic. It's just that no one is pronouncing it. With that, we take you to the markets desk, where Mosibudi Makura, or rather no, Matapelo Mahape, is standing by with your latest market indicators. It's exactly 4:30.
Business news on Channel Africa. The African perspective.
Thank you, Lulu, and good afternoon. $1 is trading at 17 Rand 64 cents in South Africa. In Botswana, it's trading at 13 Pula 40. In Namibia, it is trading at 17 Namibian dollars 64. The Zambian kwacha is at 23 kwacha 26 to the US dollar. In Kenya, the dollar is trading at 128 shilling 40. In Ethiopia, it is trading at 140 birr 90. In Uganda, it is trading at 3,000 shilling 543. In Tanzania, it is trading at 2,000 shilling 538. $1 in Nigeria is trading at 1,000 naira 533. In Egypt, the dollar is trading at 48 Egyptian pound 40. In Tunisia, it is trading at 2 dinar 88. In Algeria, it's trading at 123 dinar 11. In Morocco, the dollar is trading at 8 dirham 98. In Angola, the dollar is trading at 912 kwanza, while the Congolese franc is trading at 2,875 to the US dollar. A look at your commodities. Gold is trading at $3,345 and platinum at $1,326 per ounce. The price of Brent crude oil is at $66.55 a barrel. For any business stories you'd like to share with us, please send an email to newsroom@channelafrica.co.za or call us on +2711 714 4459. For Channel Africa Business News, I am Matabela Mahape.
Business news on Channel Africa. The African perspective.
And for the latest in the business of sport, here is Mosibudi Makura.
Sports on Channel Africa. The African perspective.
Thank you so much, Tammy. Very good afternoon from the Sports Day. So boxing, the only sporting code in South Africa governed through an act of parliament, has been beset by problems with infighting as well as corruption hogging the headlines most of the time. But what gives the newly appointed CEO Tsolule Jaka hope is that they've stabilized the key areas of governance in the organization.
In terms of governance and stability, we've just gotten out of the audit process. Auditor General, we now know where we stand with the AG, at least except yesterday. I'm going to keep you guessing on that. But I think the message that's coming across is that we've stabilized the internal control environment and our finances as well. There was a time, last year this time, if you were to ask me, I was going to tell you I'm not sure if there will be salaries or not. We're confident about our cash flow. So.
Onto this now, the Indian government has introduced a bill in parliament to ban online gambling, citing concerns of addiction as well as potential links to money laundering as well as terrorism. The bill is intended to stop websites or apps from offering games played by user paying fees or depositing money or other stakes. The BBC Anabarasan Ithrajan has the details.
Online gambling has become popular in India with people playing fantasy sports, poker and online lotteries. Endorsements by top Indian cricketers and other celebrities have boosted their appeal. But the government argues these apps are leading to addiction, mental health issues, and huge individual losses. If passed, this bill would impose jail terms or fines on individuals and companies offering online gambling services. Industry bodies have strongly opposed the bill.
Onto the story though now, the Women's Rugby World Cup final at Twickenham Stadium next month is already at 82,000 sold tickets. So far, more than 375,000 tickets will start, or rather, which start at $13 for adults, as well as $7 for children, have been sold. Sarah Messi, who is the managing director of the tournament, said more than 80% of the tickets had been sold, and that this would rise before the end of this year's tournament. On to football news now. Leon Bailey has completed a loan move from Aston Villa to Italian club Roma. The Jamaican winger has joined the Italian side for the 2025-2026 season, and the deal also includes an option to buy. The 28-year-old also made his $45 million move to Villa from German club Bayer Leverkusen in 2021 and went on to score 22 goals in 144 appearances. He signed a new contract with Villa in January of 2024 that runs until 2027. And finally, still on transfer news, Swansea City have signed Nottingham Forest midfielder Marco Samenek for an undisclosed fee, which is believed to be more than $6 million. Now, the New Zealand international, 23 years of age, agreed a 4-year deal with an option of a further 12 months at the Championship club, having spent last season on loan to Greek side Olympiacos. Well, that's a wrap of your sports news this hour. For any sports stories you'd like to share with us, our email address is newsroom@channelafrica.co.za, or call us on +27 11714 4459. For Channel Africa Sport, I am Mosibudi Makure.
Sports on Channel Africa. The African perspective. Are you fluent in French, Chinyanja, Portuguese, and Kiswahili? Are you passionate about radio? And are you looking to work in South Africa? Do you have papers that qualify you to work in South Africa? In that case, we might have an opportunity for you to work for Channel Africa. Send us your CV and demo at newsroom@channelafrica.co.za. Remember, if you don't hear from us within 14 days, it means you have not made it or you have not been selected. Channel Africa, the African perspective. Get Channel Africa on DSTV Audio Bouquet. Channel 802.
It is exactly 4:37 Central African Time. The KwaZulu-Natal Convention Bureau, in collaboration with Millvest Advisory and the city of Umhlatuze, bring you the 2025 Tourism Investment Forum Africa. As a global platform for local action, the Tourism Investment Forum Africa aims to promote secondary and tertiary cities and regions as attractive investment and tourism hubs. Be part of the movement transforming tourism investment in Africa. Join us for the TIFA 2025 from the 27th to the 29th of August at Tembela Venue in Richards Bay, KwaZulu-Natal, South Africa.
From markets to innovation. From markets to innovation. Africa in Business with Tami Ngubeni covers it all. With Africa's future in focus. Channel Africa, the African perspective.
South Africa's chairperson of the C20, Thulani Chifuta, says the volatile global geopolitical environment has exposed vulnerabilities in many economies. However, he believes Africa can seize the opportunities presented by the African Continental Free Trade Agreement. Chifuta was speaking in Pretoria, South Africa, where he briefed the media on the progress made by groups under the C20. Channel Africa's economics reporter, Innocent Samosa, has more.
The C20, which serves as the civil society engagement group within the G20 processes, under South Africa's presidency, has presented and discussed its initial policy draft. Briefing the media, C20 chairperson Thulani Chifuta said the group has adopted a pan-African policy direction as part of its work.
Right from the point that we want to reiterate upfront that the leadership of C20 South Africa has taken a deliberate stance of being pan-African in our perspective of dealing and processing all the policy proposals that we are dealing with in this work of C20 leading to G20. So all our policy proposals will be viewed through a pan-African lens and perspective in approach. We acknowledge that the South African presidency of G20 takes place within a VUCA context of the ever-shifting global geopolitical dynamics.
He also noted that the current turmoil in global trade should be seen as an opportunity within the crisis.
The turmoil in the global trade, in our view, must be considered as an opportunity in crisis for the African continent as a whole to expedite the full-scale implementation of the African Continental Free Trade Agreement and leveraging alternative markets. Otherwise, we will be caught unprepared and stuck with products and services that should be enjoyed in the global markets.
Meanwhile, C20 Sherpa Mabalani Mfundisi says the C20 has attracted over 2,400 organizations from around the world.
Taking on from the work that we're doing at the global level, the C20 South Africa has attracted over 2,400 organizations from all over the world who are participating in the 14 working groups. Through participation in the working groups, the representatives from this over 2,400 organizations to continue to make inputs on the policy briefs that we will talk about in a few moments through our policy and content technical lead, Grace Kuman. But just to foreground that, to ensure that the end product of the C20 policy pack, which is the coming together of these 14 policy briefs, members which are receiving input from members of the working groups, the C20 have constituted an international advisory committee, which we are introducing.
For Channel Africa News, I'm Innocent Samosa in Pretoria, South Africa.
Africa in Business on Channel Africa.
It is exactly 4:42 Central African time. We are looking forward to hearing from you and your comments on the various social media platforms on the stories that we've carried for you today, specifically if you are impacted in one way or the other, either as a consumer or as a business owner. On X, Instagram and YouTube, you'll find us at Channel Africa 1, and on Facebook, we are at Channel Africa. If you've got any stories that you'd like to share, stories that are of interest to our listeners, both on the African continent and in the diaspora, feel free to send us an email at newsroom@channelafrica.co.za. That's newsroom@channelafrica.co.za. Alternatively, you can call us on +27 11 714 4459.
Nkhanza zokhudza amuna ndi azimayi kapena kuti gender-based violence GBV zikuwononga mioyo komanso kuphwasula midzi. Zikuchitika m'manyumba, m'masukulu, malo ogwirira ntchito ndipo kwambiri mwakachetechete, koma sizikuyenera kupitirira. Mukazimva yankhulani. Ngati mwakhuzidwa, funani chithandizo, chifukwa kusachita chilichonse sikuthandiza. Mverani kuma wireless onse 14 a SABC kuchokera lachitatu pa 23 mwezi uno wa Julai kuti mumve zokambirana, malangizo, masewero, zionetsero za maphunziro ndi mafunso okhuza nkhanza za amuna ndi azimayi ndi akatswiri, anthu opulumuka ku nkhanzazi, kukhazikitsa lamulo komanso dziko lonse lokhuzidwa ndi nkhanzazi. Zonsezi pa wireless yomwe mumayikonda ya SABC. Imbirani pa nambala 0800 428 428 kuti munene za nkhanzazi kapena kupeza chithandizo. Nkhanza zokhuza amuna ndi azimayi zimatha ndi inu. Uthenga ukufikani kuchokera ku SABC.
African Enterprise meets global opportunity. Africa in Business on Channel Africa.
It is exactly 4:44 Central African time as we turn to the issue of women and their savings. Old Mutual's annual Old Mutual Savings and Investment Monitor 2025 has found that a proportion of women who are considerably financially stressed has risen from 39% to 43%. 76% of those who were surveyed believe that their financial situation will improve within the next 6 months. However, debt does remain a significant concern, with more than half of the working women frequently worrying about that. For more on this, we joined this afternoon by Vues Mabode, Head of Knowledge and Insights at Old Mutual. A very good afternoon to you. Good to have you with us on Africa in Business.
Good afternoon. Thank you for having me.
So when we look at the latest OM SIM, how do you call it? Is it OM SIM, the Old Mutual? OMSIM. OMSIM. Wow, that's a tongue twister right there. Let's try again. So when we look at OMSIM 2025, when we look at that survey, it shows that there is a rise of women who are financially stressed. And if you look at the number, it has risen from 39% to 43%. What could be attributed to this increased financial stress?
Absolutely. So thanks for that question. The thing that I want to share firstly is that the trend for women is different to the trend for men. So financial stress for men is largely stable and in some places actually even declining in certain cohorts. For women, however, that financial stress is increasing, and the main drivers are things like not having enough income to cover their expenses, having too much debt and indebtedness, levels of indebtedness, the high cost of living, so the challenges within the economy, and then income security. So making sure that you actually have an income or that the job you are in is secure so that you can actually fund your expenses. The other thing which we found this year to be affecting financial stress is also things like gambling. We've seen that 46% of women are gambling, and many of them gambling to try to earn an income or to add to the income that they have. So those are some of the things that are driving financial stress and eroding the financial well-being of women.
That's really interesting. What aspects of the things that you've mentioned here are unique to women? Because these sound like factors that also would impact men. What then is the differentiator?
Absolutely. I think the differentiator between men and women in particular in this year's survey, at least from what we've seen, is the level of responsibility that is, or the burden, I guess, if you want to call it that, on women versus men. So we have a term called the sandwich generation, which is simply just a description of, if you imagine an elastic band, someone who has both child dependence and adult dependence. So they are being stretched in both directions. The percentage of men who are part of the sandwich generation is 41%. The percentage of women is 47%. And if you go to single mothers in particular, 61% of single mothers are part of that sandwich generation. So the reality, I think, is that for most women, they are carrying a very heavy load from a financial perspective, and they're carrying it for multiple people in their lives. When one of the other statistics I think that's very important is 25% of women are giving more financial support to people in their lives this year versus last year. Mm-hmm. And that number is even higher for the single mothers. So I think the main driver from what's different between men and women is just how loaded they are from a financial perspective when you look at who are they responsible for, what do they need to pay for, what do they need to save for, their children's education, funerals, family commitments, all sorts of different things, their retirement, etc. So women, I think, are just stretched in every direction from what the research is telling us.
And what are the numbers as far as the percentage of single mothers in the country right now?
The percentage of single mothers is actually quite high right now. So women make up 45% of our sample in the OMSIM survey. And of those women that we've surveyed, 1 in 3 is a single mother. And so quite high.
It certainly is. So it's really around the burden of responsibility that women are facing, as you say. But quite interesting that despite all of that and despite that, some of these women, at least 76% of them, are rather optimistic that their financial situation is likely to improve in the next 6 months. What would have improved in that period? What is it that they're banking on?
Absolutely. What they're banking on is the fact that their income has improved versus last year. So 43% of working women in South Africa said, I actually earn more this year than I did last year. And one of the ways that they've done that is to diversify their income streams. So people are using social media to earn an income. People are polyjobbing, which is another term that comes from OMSIM, which is basically somebody who has a side hustle or a freelancing gig or a business on the side or whatever it is. They are basically finding ways to increase the pool of money that they earn, including things like using rental income in their own properties, right? So women are starting to just find innovative ways to earn more money, and that is also driving a lot of that optimism is coming from that. So it's people saying, I think things are going to improve because I'm actually seeing them improve. I'm seeing my income improve. I'm seeing that I'm finding new solutions, whether that is, like I said, renting a room in your house or using your social media pages to sell things, etc. So I think it's more the innovation that they're showing from an income perspective that's driving that positivity.
Really great insights that I'm sure are going to be informing the financial sector industry as to how to cater for this demographic. But given the results that have come out of OMSIM and the survey, what should financial advisors be doing differently in order to support women effectively?
Absolutely. I think the main thing for us is be aware and reflective of the reality that women are actually facing. I think perhaps sometimes what we are guilty of from a financial perspective is painting the picture of the average person versus the picture of your reality or my reality, because they're very, very different. And I think it's that individualized and personalized advice that actually helps someone navigate the circumstances that they're in. And in particular, I think when you talk, like we're talking about women right now, I think in particular, when we look at things like how they save and invest in the context of the things that they're trying to do, put their children through school and, get better skills even in their own jobs, etc. I think that's really where the opportunity lies from a financial advisor perspective is, can we put ourselves into these women's realities and help them navigate their finances today and actually help set them up for getting into a place where in the future they're financially fit and they're financially better off than they would be had they not received that advice.
Looking forward to what OMSIM 2025 brings us. Vuyokazi, thank you so much for taking us through those results of OMSIM 2025. Thank you for your time, ma'am.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. That's Vuyokazi Mabude. She's the head of knowledge and insights at Old Mutual. She takes us to exactly 4:52.
Get the news, music, and lifestyle of Africa on Channel Africa, the African perspective. Stay ahead with Africa in Business, where Tamengubeni unpacks your go-to source for Africa's economic trends and development.
What better way to close up our time together this afternoon than taking a look at the latest business and financial market developments. And for this, we've got Lindile Malchas, who's joining us. He is investment strategist at Absa Investments. Good to have you with us, Lindile.
Afternoon, Tammy, and always a pleasure to be on the show.
It certainly is. Let's start off, as we always do, with the unpacking of the latest performances as far as global and local markets are concerned. What is the landscape looking like?
From what we are seeing, there is a bit of mixed performance so far. So the Nikkei did close about over 1% down, but then we are seeing some positivity within Chinese, European and UK equities, those edging higher. And then locally, we are close to market close, so just before 5. And it does seem like local markets are going to close lower. So the all shares down about 0.2%. And this has been driven by gold and platinum miners from the resources sector, and then also followed by declines in financials and industrials. And then look at the local currency, the rand is looking a bit weak today, trading around 17 rand 70 cents, but yet to date still looking fairly strong.
And when we look at BHP Group, they reported a decline in revenue. What were the key factors driving this loss?
Yeah, so they came out with an 8% decline in revenue, and this is being driven by some pressure on prices for iron ore and coal, And then we are seeing that despite that drop in revenue, that the earnings per share did increase by about 14%. And this was driven by a double-digit increase in profits from the other operations. When you look at some of the business segments, what we did see from a production point of view is that both the copper and the iron ore segment see a rise within production, but then within the iron ore segment that did struggle due to the lower prices. And then look at the coal segment, that does to continue facing headwinds. So we did see those prices there coming down, and as a result, the coal production also fell quite significantly. And also with nickel, that did record the biggest production decline, falling by about 63%. But you are seeing from a financials perspective, company did declare a dividend of about 60 cents in dollars. However, that was down by about 19%. So just reflecting that the company is going through a very challenging operating environment. However, markets did react positively to those results, with the share up by 1.6% on the day.
Let's take a look then at the MTN group. They also released their interims. What stood out for you there?
Yes, so MTN has been one of the stronger performers this year, and it is a share that is in our portfolio as well. We are seeing quite strong performance coming from the servicing revenue, so that being up in excess of 20%, and predominantly being driven by the data and fintech revenues. And then we are also seeing a turnaround within earnings per share that's increasing by more than 100%. And that is because it is coming from a loss in the prior period. So it entering positive territory does drive quite a strong growth there. And what is leading this growth is a turnaround within Nigeria that has come under significant pressure from a currency perspective and inflation perspective. So we are seeing turnarounds there, whilst the South African business is also seeing a bit of pressure from the prepaid segment point of view as well. Then looking at some of the other things that have come out from a financials perspective, they have upgraded their guidance for their service revenue to come in around high teens. So that was also quite positively viewed by the market. However, the share did fall by about 8% on the day on the back of news of the US probing into some of their operations within Iran and Afghanistan. So that overshadowing the very positive results that we saw from the company.
And as we wrap up this afternoon, Lindile, what economic releases are the markets expecting this week?
Yes, so I think today a lot of those results came out. But what stood out for us is the South African inflation figures. So that came out today, with inflation standing around 3.5%, and that increasing from a prior print of around 3%. So you are seeing that significant uptick within inflation as well.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Lindile Malgas, giving us the latest business and financial market developments. See you again next time. Well, next week, the same time.
Thanks, Tammy.
Thank you, Lindile. That's Lindile Malgas, investment strategist at ABSA Investments. That's how we come to the end of Africa in Business for this afternoon. And bonjour to you, Joelle, as you head us into the French desk.
Bonjour Tammy, bonjour à tous les éditeurs de Channel Africa. Alors restez connectés parce que tout à l'heure sur Vues d'Afrique, il sera question du Mali. Le procureur général près la Cour suprême annonce l'ouverture d'une information judiciaire à l'encontre de Joelle Muteba. Nous parlerons également du démarrage ce jeudi au Japon de la conférence internationale sur le développement de l'Afrique, ainsi que pour les grands titres évidemment. Au Togo, une ancienne ministre des Armées rompt le silence. Il est assez dans la grande actualité de Vues d'Afrique. Merci à tous de rester connectés. Merci Tammy.
Merci Joelle. That's Joelle with Vues d'Afrique coming up in just a moment. Thank you so much to our entire Africa in Business team, our producer Mabo Buloka, technical producer Wandile Mate, and on social media talent Butelezi. On the news desk, Onele Nzinzi, economics desk Matapelo Mahape, and sport with Musibudi Makura. I'm Tami Ngubeni, and this has been your Wednesday edition of Africa in Business on Channel Africa.
Avec Joelle Muteba sur Channel Africa de 15h à 16h, temps universel. Channel Africa, la perspective africaine.
Bonjour à tous et merci de vous connecter sur notre site internet le www.channelafrica.co.za pour suivre Vues d'Afrique, le magazine d'actualité africaine en langue française. Nous émettons depuis nos studios d'Auckland Park en Afrique du Sud et Francis Massina est à la technique. Voici sans tarder les principaux titres qui font l'actualité du jour. Au Mali, le procureur général près la Cour suprême annonce l'ouverture d'une information judiciaire à l'encontre de l'ancien Premier ministre Joelle Muteba pour atteinte aux biens publics et malversation. Démarrage ce jeudi au Japon de la conférence internationale sur le développement de l'Afrique TICAD, une occasion majeure pour les entreprises japonaises de renforcer leurs relations avec l'Afrique. Et pour les derniers titres de ce soir, le Togo, une ancienne ministre des Armées, rompt le silence dans une vidéo. Elle appelle à la démission du président Faure Gnassingbé. Voilà donc pour les grands titres que j'aurai un réel plaisir de développer après le bulletin d'information de Joelle Kabongo. Bonjour Kabongo.
Bonjour Joël.
SABC, actualité. La perspective africaine.
Bonjour à toutes et à tous, bienvenue à cette nouvelle édition qui s'ouvre au Mali. L'ancien Premier ministre Joelle Muteba, limogé en novembre dernier, a été inculpé mardi pour atteinte aux biens publics et placé sous mandat de dépôt. Il est accusé d'atteinte aux biens publics après une garde à vue de 8 jours au pôle économique financier.
Selon la chambre d'instruction de la Cour suprême, la décision fait suite à sa gestion financière à l'époque où il était à la primature qui a été passée au crible par le vérificateur général. L'ex-premier ministre conteste les faits. Certains de ses partisans parlent même de « règlement de compte ». Joelle Muteba avait été nommé Premier ministre en 2021 par le président de la transition Assimi Goïta, avant d'être limogé en novembre 2024 après avoir émis des critiques contre lui. Elle avait déploré notamment d'être tenue à l'écart des décisions sur le maintien aux commandes des généraux qui avaient initialement promis de rendre le pouvoir à des civils élus en mars 2024. Aucune date n'a été fixée pour son procès.
Au Cameroun, les candidats à la présidentielle du 12 octobre, Akere Mouna, a déposé mardi une requête devant le Conseil constitutionnel. Il demande à l'instant de constater l'inéligibilité du président Paul Biya, au pouvoir depuis 43 ans et candidat pour un 8e mandat à l'âge de 92 ans. L'opposant s'appuie sur l'article 118 de la loi électorale qui stipule que sont inéligibles les personnes qui se sont placées de leur propre fait dans une situation de dépendance vis-à-vis d'une personne, d'une organisation ou d'une puissance étrangère. Selon Akere Mouna, le chef de l'État camerounais, en raison de son état de santé, doit être considéré dans une situation de dépendance. Il se dit conscient que sa requête sera sans doute jugée irrécevable par le Conseil constitutionnel, mais il dit vouloir utiliser la loi pour mettre le sujet au cœur du débat public. En Ouganda, le parti Mouvement national de résistance a officiellement présenté mardi le président Yoweri Kaguta Museveni comme son candidat à la présidence pour les élections générales de 2026.
Le portrait de campagne du chef de l'État sortant a été présenté par le parti pour marquer le début des préparatifs pour le prochain scrutin. Yoweri Museveni est à la tête du pays depuis près de 4 décennies et demie. Il a fait ses débuts dans la vie politique lors des élections générales de 1980, après avoir fondé le mouvement patriotique ougandais. Après s'être présenté à des élections législatives durant lesquelles il est battu, il se tourne vers la lutte armée durant laquelle il prendra le pouvoir en 1986. Museveni passe de chef rebelle à celui de président élu en 1996. Après avoir remporté les premières élections présidentielles directes depuis son arrivée au pouvoir.
Au Kenya, au moins 75 jeunes ayant participé aux manifestations antigouvernementales en juillet ont été inculpés mardi pour terrorisme. D'après une plateforme regroupant des juristes, des organisations de la société civile et des chercheurs, 450 manifestants ont aussi été inculpés pour des crimes graves. Ils encourent de peines allant jusqu'à la prison à perpétuité, étant donné que la peine maximale pour terrorisme au Kenya est de 30 ans de prison. Depuis la Constitution de 2010, seules 15 personnes ont été poursuivies pour terrorisme. La plateforme voit derrière cette condamnation un abus de la loi et du droit de la part des autorités kenyanes. Nous bouclons en Afrique du Sud. Après 7 ans d'enquête, la section trafic d'espèces sauvages de l'unité d'enquête sur la criminalité organisée a démantelé un important réseau transnational de trafic des cornes des rhinocéros. Ce réseau est lié à une fraude impliquant 964 cornes des rhinocéros d'une valeur de plusieurs millions de rands destinés aux marchés illégaux d'Asie et du Sud-Est. Au total, 6 suspects âgés de 49 à 84 ans sont accusés des fraudes, de vols et des violations de la loi nationale de 2004 sur la gestion de l'environnement et la biodiversité. Des accusations supplémentaires, des rackets et des blanchiments d'argent sont également envisagés. Le ministre des Forêts, de la Pêche et de l'Environnement, Dion George, a salué cette arrestation comme une victoire décisive dans la lutte de l'Afrique du Sud contre la criminalité internationale liée aux espèces sauvages. Fin de cette page d'actualité. Merci de l'avoir suivi.
SABC Actualité. La perspective africaine.
Bienvenue dans la grande actualité de Vues d'Afrique. Je suis Joelle Muteba. Vous êtes au www.channelafrica.co.za. Salutations également à ceux qui nous suivent depuis DSTV 802 ou OpenView 628 ou encore à partir de l'application SABC+. Merci de nous suivre également sur nos chaînes YouTube et Facebook en direct et même en images. Au Nigeria, au moins 27 fidèles ont été tués et plusieurs blessés lorsque des bandits armés ont pris d'assaut une mosquée de l'État de Katsina dans le nord du Nigeria pendant la prière du matin. Des hommes armés ont ouvert le feu à l'intérieur d'une mosquée alors que des musulmans se rassemblaient pour prier vers 4 heures du matin. Les détails avec Gilbert Tamba à Abuja.
Il est environ 5 heures du matin dans le calme habituel de la prière du matin, un moment sacré de recueillement et de paix. Mais ce mardi, dans un petit village de l'état de Katsina, dans le nord du Nigeria, ce calme a été brutalement brisé. Des hommes armés que les habitants qualifient de bandits ont fait irruption dans une mosquée pendant que les fidèles étaient en prière. Bilan, au moins 27 morts et plusieurs blessés, certains grièvement. Selon les premiers témoignages recueillis sur place, les assaillants sont arrivés à moto. Ils ont ouvert le feu sans distinction, sémant la panique dans les rangs des fidèles piégés à l'intérieur du lieu de culte. Une attaque d'une rare violence qui a duré plusieurs minutes avant que les agresseurs ne prennent la fuite. Le chef du village, visiblement ému, a confirmé le nombre de victimes. Les corps ont été transportés à la morgue de l'hôpital local où plusieurs blessés sont toujours pris en charge. Le personnel médical débordé tente de stabiliser les survivants.